Warning, F-bombs are armed and may be dropped. Hopefully this will be the last of my coronavirus videos. If you've been following me at all, you know that I have a belief that Iran created the coronavirus to frame China. Okay, what does frame mean? They did it in such a way that China looks guilty. China made this thing and it got out of control, intentionally, unintentionally, or otherwise. And now everybody's mad at China for creating this new virus. I do not believe China made this. I don't think they have any idea where it came from. And the fact that they did keep so quiet for so long suggests maybe I'm right. Where did it come from? Iran created it. Now, how they got the base viral material, I'm not sure. They could have gotten it a million ways. All they have to do to make this into a superbug is literally put some into a petri dish with a small amount of penicillin or amoxicillin or whatever cillin you want to put in there so that it develops a resistance to the antibiotics that we use. All right, and this is something that's been done in the real world. The United States Navy accidentally did exactly this in the 1950s, 60s, and into the 70s, I believe. Before a sailor could go ashore in certain ports, which I think was at captain's discretion, they would have to take a penicillin tablet, actually take it right there in front of either their chief or superior officer, for officers obviously, and then they could go ashore. And it was to prevent the sailors from getting VD, and that's fine so far as it went, but what they accidentally did was teach the local venereal diseases, mostly gonorrhea and chlamydia, how to become resistant to penicillin. That created a penicillin-resistant venereal disease. You see where this is going, right? But that's just one little piece of the puzzle. But Iran doesn't have those facilities. Yes, they do. And we know from the Federation of American Scientists, link in the description, that in the 1980s, they were actually working on a program like this in the midst of their war with Iraq. They were going to turn loose some sort of biological virus, a biological weapon, and clear out millions of Iraqi soldiers. Now, what happened to that program? Well, we don't know, do we? Iran says they shut it down. Yeah, I don't believe them at all. Okay. Well, it's obvious it came from China. No, it's not. It's a coronavirus, sure, but it could have come from anywhere. In the 1990s, the United States Army sent a major expedition to today's Republic of Congo Zaire, to find a sample of Ebola Zaire right here in the United States. In Washington, D.C., which is only about 2,000 miles from me, there was a Ebola outbreak. Now, this was at a research monkey holding facility, and it was set up to quarantine these research monkeys in case they were sick. They wouldn't get out into the rest of the research population and kill those off as well. So we were kind of lucky. We had began a quarantine process. We were not lucky that monkeys did bring virus in. 2 people were actually infected, 2 humans. We don't know why, but neither one of them actually became sick. We dodged a bullet. That's it. And there but for the grace of God, I say it. God intervened. But that was our warning. Not God making the decision to spare humanity by letting these 2 people walk. It was a warning. Hey, stupid, wake up, pay attention. this is a real thing, and you need to start dealing with this problem, and we didn't. We just, we dodged a bullet, we're good. So, let's talk a little more functional. How would Iran have gotten the virus? We don't know. They could have mounted their own expedition to anywhere to get the viral sample. How would they have developed it? Basically, basic resistance training. Put it in a petri dish, put some penicillin in with it. The strongest will survive. How did they release it? I'm coming back to the United States here. In 1984, up in the Dalles, Oregon, there was a biological weapons attack. People associated with a certain cult, really, wanted to gain political influence in the Dalles and that county. So they tried to get everybody sick. Now, what they used was salmonella. You will survive salmonella under all but the worst circumstances. They spread it on salad bars on Friday morning, I think is what the security cameras show. By Sunday morning, no, it must have been a Sunday morning when they sprayed it. And by Tuesday morning, then, people are starting to feel sick, and the elections are on, I think it said Friday. By Friday, you're not over your sickness, so you don't go vote. Their candidates were supposed to win. That's how that happened. And I think that was what Iran was originally intending. Just get China a little bit sick. It's a non-lethal virus. And this is documented. COVID-19 is not really that serious if you treat it correctly. China didn't know what they were really up against. They thought this is just another flu, or maybe they were aware and they were like, we got to cover this up because we're not supposed to know what this is, or whatever. I don't care, really. For whatever reason, China didn't treat this virus the right way, and it got out of control. And that's when that shit hit the fan. Sorry. Okay. And then it spread. It spread, first of all, back to Iran. Well, that's where it came from. But it also spread to the United States, Hong Kong, Australia. Italy is getting really hammered. Although Italy's 31% death rate is more likely a reflection of just how novel it is and just how unprepared Italy is to deal with something that's this new. And as time goes on, it'll go down from 31% to 0.1%. Germany's reporting outbreaks. Britain's reporting outbreaks. Thailand. I think there's been reports of outbreaks in Mexico, Saudi Arabia. I think that was earlier today. Said, yep, we've got them. I'm not entirely sure that that was Iran's plan. I think their plan was to damage China. But what they managed to do was damage everybody. U.S. stock markets are plummeting. British stock markets are plummeting. Japan, which I don't think has any reported outbreaks yet, their stock market's been hit. I don't know of anybody who hasn't reported a problem. Even medical supply companies are saying, we got problems. TVIX, whatever that is the only company that's actually reporting that their stocks are gaining in the middle of this crisis. And of course, I could be mistaken about several parts of this. There could be a lot of people doing very well because of it. Nobody's that I've heard of, other than TVIX, is. So that's kind of a point. Iran's whole point was to damage the Chinese economy, and guess what? They didn't just damage China's. Now, why China? Well, so that China will be blamed for it. It had nothing to do with loving or hating China. That was irrelevant. The whole point was, we're going to put this on China so that they get in trouble. Well, why not Russia? Because Russia is a much bigger economy and would have done a lot more damage. Yeah, and Russia doesn't have a reputation of huge best practices failures. China does. They've had, I think, 4 of the last 6 major viral outbreaks, major pandemics, because they're not handling the business correctly. Well, why not a smaller country, a weaker country like Vietnam, Somalia, Zaire? Because the likelihood of it getting expanded, getting kind of out of control, which is the whole point, from those countries, not nearly as good as China. This is like, shooting somebody and then dropping the gun on the guy that would be most likely to have had a gun. And not necessarily shooting somebody and then dropping the gun on someone who's known to not really keep guns in any significant quantity. All right? It would be so believable for a pandemic to break out in China. A pandemic to break out in Zaire? No. Russia? Not likely. Ukraine? No. What can we do? Well, the first thing we have to do is treat the sick and injured, or sick in this case, clean up the mess, because this is going to become a global mess, and put everything back together again as best as we can for where it was before. Will I ever prove that Iran did it? Not likely. Not without a regime change and the release of literally billions of documents out of Iran that would take decades to prove, or to fully archive and review. We know that Germany did exactly this in the closing days of World War II. There was a particular swamp that Mussolini had drained, and it was working, it was beautiful, it was fine. Italy switched sides to the Allies, or more precisely, they went neutral. And as the Anglo-Americans are marching up, the German army flooded those marshes. They literally just turned the pumps around and had them pumping the water from the ocean into the marsh. Created this huge swampy mess that the Anglo-Americans had to march their way through, or work their way through. And at the time, that's all we thought about. It's just this nasty mess we have to work with. But about a year later, Italy had a massive malaria outbreak. Malaria was the disease that German bioweapons experts were working on. In Japan, they had been working on bubonic plague, but in Germany, they preferred malaria. A malarial outbreak right about 6 months to a year after Germany pulled out of Italy. Come on. If I have to draw you a picture here, I will insult you in the process. If you don't believe me, there'll be a link in the description, but it was Nazi killer bugs from, they call themselves American Heroes Channel now. It's the Old History Channel, where they, Most Evil, I think, was the series, where they talk about specifically the fact that now we know this is what happened. Now, I know a lot of people are very, very mad about me saying, Iran created coronavirus to frame China. And I've been called racist by people who are, ironically enough, racistly calling Iran incapable of doing this. Come on, guys. Pick a story, one way or the other. I've been called insane, crazy, conspiracy nut. Listen, I've been on this Iran is evil kick since 2003 at least. I'm not going to stop now. This is something I said back in 2017 was a possibility, that Iran could use a non-lethal virus, or biological weapon, excuse me, in preparation for 9017. 9017, you know, the bullshit theory I have that they're going to launch a global, possibly, terror strike. Yeah. You can call me crazy all you want. But in a year's time, I'm still going to be alive. And good question is, will you be? Wash your hands, mandatory carry on.